Why are we so violent? For centuries, we've basically been told it's just in our nature, some kind of animal instinct we can never really escape. But what if that's not just wrong, but a profoundly dangerous misunderstanding? Well, today we're diving into Erich Fromm's pretty radical theory from his book, The Anatomy of Human Destructiveness. He argues that our capacity for real, malicious violence isn't a biological hand-me-down, but a uniquely human and maybe even preventable problem.
So let's just start with the biggest question of all. Are we just hardwired for destruction? Is violence buried deep in our DNA? For a very long time, the answer most people gave was yes. But this is the exact assumption that Erich Fromm was determined to tear down. And to do that, he starts by attacking the very words we use. Fromm argues our whole understanding is built on a myth, and that myth is held up by the incredibly sloppy way we use one single word: aggression. I mean, this is Fromm's central point right here. We use the word aggression for literally everything. Think about it. A soldier defending their life, a mugger killing a victim, heck, even a surgeon cutting into a patient to save them. We call it all aggression. By lumping these totally different acts together, we make it absolutely impossible to figure out what's really going on. It's just a recipe for confusion. So why do we do it? Why do we stick with this idea that doesn't really help us? Well, Fromm says it's because it's convenient. It's an easy out. See, if violence is just an instinct, then we don't have to do the really hard work of looking at the complex social, economic, and psychological things that actually cause it. It lets us just throw our hands up and say, well, that's just human nature, and that kind of absolves us of any real responsibility. So, to fix this, Fromm just cuts right through all the noise with one simple, fundamental distinction. He argues there aren't dozens of types of aggression. There are really only two. And believe me, they are worlds apart. Okay, so on one side, you've got what he calls benign aggression. This is defensive. It's the fight or flight response that we share with all animals. It's a reaction to a threat, and its whole purpose is to serve life. But then, on the other side, there's something totally different: malignant aggression. This is uniquely human. It's not a reaction, it's a passion for destruction itself, a character trait that actually finds pleasure in cruelty. One is a biological tool for survival, the other is a psychological sickness. So if this destructive passion isn't an instinct we're born with, where in the world did it come from? To figure that out, Fromm takes us on a journey way back in time to see what the evidence from our earliest ancestors actually tells us. When we actually look at the anthropological record of early hunter-gatherers, we don't find that brutal, club-wielding caveman from the cartoons. Not at all. In fact, we find the exact opposite. The anthropologist Colin Turnbull described it as an almost total lack of aggression. These were cooperative societies, built on sharing and generosity. There was no organized war. It just wasn't a thing. So when did everything change? Fromm points to a really specific moment: the big shift from small, cooperative farming villages to these huge, hierarchical city-states around 3000 BC. He calls it the urban revolution, and it created entirely new social conditions. All of a sudden, you have rigid class structures, private property that needs to be defending, and centralized power that needs to be maintained by force. And this right here is the bombshell. War, Fromm concludes, is not some biological imperative. It's a social invention. It was created, just like bureaucracy or taxes, to serve the needs of these new complex societies. They needed conquest, they needed slave labor, and they needed a ruling class to stay in control. It wasn't born from our passions, it was designed for a purpose. Okay, so if war is an invention and not an instinct, what about that malignant aggression we talked about, that personal passion for cruelty? Fromm argues this comes from the development of a specific type of personality, the destructive character. Let's be really clear about this definition. Malignant aggression isn't about survival. It's a deep-seated part of a person's character, a lust for cruelty and destruction that is fundamentally anti-life. Fromm believed this destructive character develops when a person's natural potential for growth and life gets blocked, and it shows up in two main ways. The first one is sadism. And listen, this isn't just about causing physical pain. It's really about the thrill of absolute domination. The sadist wants to make another living being completely helpless, to turn them from a person into an object, an extension of their own will. It's the ultimate twisted expression of power over another person. And then Fromm identifies an even more disturbing passion, and he uses a really provocative word for it: necrophilia. Now hold on, he's not just using the narrow clinical definition here. For Fromm, this is a much bigger idea. It's the love of all things dead. It's an attraction to everything that is decaying, mechanical, and unfeeling. This person is hostile to life itself, driven by this deep passion to turn the organic into the inorganic, the living into the dead. And this isn't just some abstract idea. I mean, check out this quote from the Futurist Manifesto. It is a perfect, chilling example of the necrophilist mindset in action. Here, a machine, a roaring car, is explicitly celebrated as more beautiful than a masterpiece of classical art representing life and victory. War isn't seen as a tragedy, it's called hygiene. This is the love of the mechanical and the destructive, turned into a whole artistic and political program. Wow, this all sounds incredibly bleak, I know. But Fromm's analysis is not a message of despair, not at all. Instead, what he does is present humanity with a fundamental choice, a choice between two completely opposite ways of being. So these are the two paths. On one side, you have necrophilia, the love of death, control, and all things mechanical. But its polar opposite is biophilia, the love of life. This is our natural, built-in tendency toward growth, connection, and vitality. It's the drive to create, not destroy. For Fromm, the struggle between these two forces defines the core moral problem of our entire existence. And here is the glimmer of hope in his message. Fromm saw that even as the forces of destruction were getting stronger in modern society, so were the forces of life. He looked at protest movements, a growing concern for humanity, and the search for meaning as real evidence of this anti-necrophilist trend. This, he believed, is our only way out.
So in the end, Fromm's theory really frees us from the prison of biological destiny. He argues our destructiveness isn't our fate. It's a product of our character and our society. And that means we have a choice. Which leaves us with a final, really urgent question. As you look at the world right now, which force, the love of death or the love of life, do you see winning?